to receive comments from the public. We have one gentleman signed up, Mr. Keith Lincoln, who is a resident of Mud 39, would like to address the board.
Good afternoon. My name is Keith Lincoln. I've lived in Mud District 39 in Hartford Landing for 23 years. I'm one of the original residents. I am a graduate of Texas A&M. I have an engineering degree. I'm a director for a business here for a big logistics company I've had for 20 years. And the reason here to talk is because I have an interest in the vacancy position for the Mud District to be built. I've been extremely active in my community for as long as I've been a resident. I've been election judge. I'm a precinct chair. I routinely work with our county commissioners for projects. I work with TxDOT on projects. I have been a influence into our neighborhood to get other people involved. I've worked to help bring attention and interest from the community and this board. I helped to convince Mr. Sean Apacello to run for his position and to recruit to bring some new energy into this. Again, I'm an analyst by degree. I'm an engineering degree. I run a business unit. I manage a profit center. Again, with all my community project, I feel like I'm extremely qualified. And being a resident in the district for 23 years, I think that I would be a good fit for the board. And again, you know, I've stayed extremely active in my community through many organizations. Scoutmaster, I could go on with a resume. Scoutmaster for Boy Scouts. My wife is an administrator for Conroe ISD. And so I've led a lot of fund drives and volunteered at schools. I mean, there's not much I haven't done in this community since I've been here for the last 23 years. And of course, you know, I have a lot of interest in the Mud District, and I've been following and you know, I think I'd be a good fit to join this group here. And so I came here today to introduce myself and give a little bit of background so you know who I am. And I know this is not the time for questions, but I can leave my contact information if anybody has any questions or wanted to follow up with me or you know, any other qualifications, I'd be happy to share.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. And Keith, you're welcome to stay through the whole meeting, but you don't feel obligated. Any other comments from the public? It's not signed up. Any introductions? Mr. Bredehoff, I know you're going to be on an agenda item. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Then item number 3 is consider and act on requests for adjustments to or relief from the specific charges imposed by the district. None? None. All right. That being said, we're moving on to items number 4 through 12, which is the consent agenda. If there's any items that need to be pulled from the consent agenda, we need to know that now. Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda if there's not anything that needs to be updated.
Second from the floor.
Sounds like it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, consent agenda is approved, and it was quite substantial with the information that was on it. So we appreciate that. All right, moving on to the regular agenda, item number 13, review and consider approval of district's fiscal year 2022-23 draft budget. And that was on the Google Drive, and we also had several presentations on that in the past.
Great. Another year and it all went well. County department's doing a great job for y'all. We didn't have any significant adjustments to speak of. And we've got a report together. I can go through sections if you like, or we can just take questions, however you'd like to do.
We'll see if there's any questions first, and then we'll maybe let you just hit on some highlights if there are no questions. Any questions, Sherman? Conversation, topics?
No, not really. I mean, we've already been through it a couple times.
Yeah. Want to maybe just hit the highlights for us?
Yeah,
as a recap.
Most interesting part of this report is we added that defined area in this year. And so we've got all the disclosures related to it and notes 14 and 15. So, and developer advancement funds, those kind of things. That's probably the highlight of the year.
Anything else? Anything to add here from your staff? All right, do we need to approve that now, or are we just accepting it as a report, or? All right. So then we need a motion to accept the report as presented so that it can be filed. Any motion on the floor?
So move.
Second.
Yeah, all right. We have a motion and a second on the floor to accept the district's fiscal year 2022-23 report. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item number 14, receive a report regarding proposed amendment to the Montgomery County Appraisal District's 2024 budget in connection with the new election process for the for MCAD's Board of Directors. So we need a little bit of background because I read through that and it's a little bit confusing to me. So
Has a little bit more information on it for y'all. I have several things in your packet, but I have one in there, that has your normal quarterly comments that you make every year. And then, there has been a change to Senate Bill 2 as far as the election goes, which we just went through the election, for the MCAT board. Arthur, there's a list of the directors in your packet. Now, Senate Bill 2 has, changed it to where there's going to be a 9-member board instead of 5-member board. 3 out of the 9 will have to be elected. Okay, so they have a supplemental agenda of $350,000 because they're contracting with the county like you all would do. So, and your portion for that's going to be added to your quarterly installment is $400, a little over that. So at the end of your 4th quarter, if the appraisal district doesn't use the entire $350, you'll get a credit on the 4th quarter. Okay. The election starts, or the process starts at the end of the 17th. And it goes through February 16th. Arthur will go through the following the rest of the process of how it's all going to work in the appraisal district information.
Jenny, thanks. You teed it up very well. First of all, I'd like to thank Mud 39 for your support that helped me get elected for 2024 and 25 on the MCAD board. Special purpose districts are very important. My election process was through the special purpose districts to get to the larger election, and you guys helped me get there. So I appreciate that. And special purpose districts in this county serve a very, very valuable part for our residents, for the quality of life and the services you provide to our residents. We're here today out of respect for the special purpose district and MUD 39 to talk about the supplemental budget. When we originally, and I'm the budget chair for MCAD, so when we put the budget together and sent it out to all the taxing units in June, the cost of Senate Bill 2 was not known. Had that cost been known and that we were going to be mandated to run an election, that would have been in the main part of the budget and there would have been no supplemental budget. We as MCAD do not like supplemental budgets, just like all of us as people don't like to get supplemental billings when we think we got the price and then all of a sudden another bill shows up and they're looking for more income. But the reason we have to come back on supplemental billing, as an organization, we depend upon revenue and fees from our taxing units to run the organization. So we can't go out. We have no taxing power. We have no ability to go out and charge a fee. So that's why we brought this supplemental budget back for $350,000. As Jeannie says, this is our best estimate. And if we use less than this, we'll return it as a credit to each taxing unit, and that'll be in the 4th quarter. We also have to realize that this is for an election that there will not be a runoff. Should the election of 3 directors go into a runoff, then there'd be an additional supplement coming back because the county would charge us our portion to be part of any runoff election. Since it's our first election mandated, we decided as an organization to join the county. We're very fortunate in this county. We've got a good election department. They run good elections, and there's no sense running a separate election. As we've learned as MUD directors through Brian's counsel, very challenging to run your own election. It's got more difficult over years, and there's a lot more requirements. You have to have a good election and put it in with the county, just like the MUD districts. And that's the reason why we came back with a supplemental budget. Well, let's stay with the budget questions on the supplemental budget, and then we'll go into some of the mechanics of what will take place in the election.
I got one question for you, Arthur. So the 350,000 is in addition to what was already budgeted, or is the 350,000 the full adjusted amount for the election?
50,000 is an additional supplemental budget, the main budget that was presented to all the taxing units in June and approved by the MCAD board in September. And at September, we're just starting to learn what the details were as they went through various additional sessions. Now, today, your MCAD board is a 5-member board elected by the tax. One path is up through the special purpose districts that happen in July. And then there's the main election that takes place in the fall. The 6th member of our board is on there legislated by the state, and that's the tax assessor collector. And that's a non-voting position. So that's the 6th today. Jeannie indicated we'll add 3 more that'll be elected at large through the county, and that'll bring you a 9-member board. And the 3 that will get elected will be seated in July of 24. And eventually down the road, there's some other rules about staggered terms, about naming positions, but for the first election, none of that's here. And we all know things can change in the next legislative session in 25, what takes place beyond.
So the 3 that are going to be elected, are they going to be elected by the public at large?
Yes, they will be elected at large. They will file with the county. There's a $400 filing fee. There's a packet similar to what MUD directors would fill out. You fill out the packet, take your $400, go down to the county and present your application. It will be reviewed. If you get the check mark, you'll be on file. And then you run a course. Bless you. Okay. And MCAD, Janet Jennings Doyle, our chief appraiser, has met a number of times with Sue Harvey to learn what the process is. Be more meetings as we get closer to the May election. What's important, as Jeannie said, that the filing time is tight. It's the same as the MUD. So today's day 1, and I think, Brian, it's the 16th of February, right? That will close. And we're open to any other questions. That's kind of the highlights. There's more information in the packet.
So for us, for our board, all we're doing is accepting this report, and any approval is going to be done by the trustees. Is that correct?
No action will be at the MUD or trustee level. It will just be by MCAD. This is informational.
Gotcha.
And the additional budget request will be, actually, the budget cost will be in your quarterly billings. But again, we wanted to get out and talk about it, other than just sending out a piece of paper to say, here it is.
Good. Well, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate the info. Mr.
Appreciate you
Chairman.
guys. Appreciate what you do for our community.
Thank you. So there's another piece that was included with this particular thing, also from the appraisal district. Are we going to talk about that as well? The letter says it's come to our attention that the district that estimates the budget has to do with Tomball ISD.
Yeah, they had made an error on their value. It was 153 billion. So therefore, when they did the budget for what you all would pay, it was much higher because they made the error that Tomball sent over the wrong amount. And so they had to go back and recalculate, and that's what they're telling you, that it's been recalculated. Because Tomball's value is lower than what they said in the beginning.
So they estimated 100 billion and it was 100 million. All right,
That's what that is.
rather large, right?
So the 18,808 that's highlighted on the line of all the taxing authorities in this letter, what does that mean to us? Because we have a breakdown here. It says first quarterly payment of $4,702, and then the next quarter.
Yeah, your amount in here. It's a huge calculation. The total amount for the year is 18,808. Split that into 4 payments, it's $4,700.
So the 18,808, is that something new to us or was that already on through our process?
Well, that amount is new.
Higher than what it was.
Yeah.
before. It's just higher than what it was before because of the reduction. in
Because of the
costs.
reduction, yes, exactly.
I guess what I'm asking is what's the differential? What was it in our budgeting process compared to 18? So the 18,808 is completely new to us?
Fee every year, okay, and we should put it in the budget every year of what the estimate is.
Right.
Okay, and these are the actual numbers now. Okay, you didn't see it before because I didn't have it.
Right. Okay. So can we take this up again with a little bit further discussion? Because I'm a little confused. I don't know if anyone else is confused, if it's just me, but it seems to me, it looks like we're getting a new bill for $18,000. And all I'm asking,
What was our 2022 annual bill? Would it be possible?
15,000? All right, so we're about a differential of 3,000 something dollars.
Yes,
Okay, that's what I'm getting at.
last year to this year, yes.
That
Okay.
provides a lot of context. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Then we don't need to, I'm okay. That was my only question. That's how much difference. All right, any other questions or comments on that topic? All right, so we're moving on to item number 15. Grant exemption from taxation for 2024 and the adoption of the resolution in connection therewith.
We talk about each year, the district has the ability to grant both a general residential homestead exemption and an over 65 and disabled exemption. MUD 39, similar to the other MUDs in the Woodlands, a few years back adopted the maximum general residential homestead exemption of 20%. You have also granted for your MUD 35, 39 over 65 and disabled residents a $10,000 over 55 and disabled exemption. So that exemption stacked on top of the residential homestead exemption for those folks who qualify for both. Range of exemptions in the Woodlands, we get that question from time to time, is from 10,000 to it's the board discretion what exemption you set, but we do need to consider that today.
And I think we've already talked about this, but to Brian's point, I guess what we're doing here is approving the resolution to adopt a $10,000 disability / 65 or older, not both for one person, and or the homestead exemption of $20,000 per resident per house. And I think we've 20%, I'm sorry, 20%. And that we've, I think, talked about that before. So now we're just trying to adopt those exemptions.
That's the highest you can go. So it's gonna be on the over 65 and disabled.
And did we have something on that prior to? Did we have a 65 or disabled before now
Yeah.
at all?
Yeah.
So nothing's changing?
If you choose to keep those
Yeah.
today. But this is the time where if you wanted to consider a change either on homestead, which I doubt you would.
So this particular document is just showing what the levels are set at where we currently are. If
Correct.
we just want to keep everything status quo or if we want to adjust it. And
Correct.
we really can't go up because we're already at the highest.
On the homestead exemption.
Homestead.
Right, that's what I'm referring to. Thank you.
Could go higher, 65 and disabled.
But we haven't looked at those numbers as to what they would bring to the rolls or anything.
Yeah, I
So,
can't just spitball a number.
yeah, so I would propose we just leave them where they are as of now.
I'll make a motion, we leave it like it is.
Okay.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor and a second to adopt the exemptions as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brian. All right, item number 16, discuss appointment of the new director to fill the vacancy on the board of directors and authorize any action necessary in conjunction therewith. As you know, we had somebody speak to us once before. Mr. Lincoln has come to us today, and I think probably by next meeting, we will make a decision on how we will fill that vacancy. But we need to let Mr. Lincoln know, and also the other candidates know, that the time frame in which that by the time we make the decision, the filing will have closed for anybody wanting to run.
Right.
So if somebody is going to run for the position, they need to file, because we won't have a meeting until after the filing deadline has ended.
Right.
So-
So, I mean, our next meeting is the 21st and the filing deadline is February 16th. So, I mean, yeah, I would agree.
So we'll send a notice out to Mr. Lincoln and to the other candidates, just so they know that.
Well, and looks like if these dates are packet, the position that's vacant term doesn't end until 2026. So it would not be one up for election.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, yeah, it was the term whenever Kevin and I got voted in. So,
Okay. All right.
Cool.
Any further discussion on that? And we don't need a motion or anything, or any approval or anything. All right. All right, item number 17, receive the regular monthly SJRA Woodlands Division report, including updates on operations, projects, and public outreach. Chris?
Good evening. Two quick items. The first one is the final report for the wastewater strategic plan phase 2 will be on the Google Drive by the end of the month. As soon as we get to Shelley, we'll ask that, see if they can email the directors to let y'all know what's out there for y'all to review. It's roughly 200 pages, so it's going to take a little bit to go through. The second item is, prior to the meeting, I passed out a draft supplemental agreement. This is basically the end result of the 2 years and $2 million worth of studies that we've had with the directors. It also is the beginning of the replacement of wastewater treatment plant number 1 that we all talked about and agreed to last year. So what this supplemental agreement does is it's only for one bond, the initial bond for design, no construction. It's also estimated at $35 million of proceeds, roughly $40 million of sales, so we can pay for issuance, cost, debt service, and everything else. This supplemental agreement will essentially last for 2 to 3 years. That's how long design was. So what we're looking for is y'all to review this. Circle back with any questions, comments that you have. We do expect changes. I know Brian and Eric have some conversation coming up, but wanted to get it in front of you and tell you this is just the first stage of replacing the plant. And we cannot go any further until we have funds for it out. Any questions on that or anything else?
I don't know if there was, I don't have a particular question on this yet. I need to dive deeper into this, but I did have a question. I don't know if it was discussed in December or, you know, in the all mud meeting. I had a sick kiddo that night. Did y'all ever hire another consultant about the inspection of the pipes?
No, sir. The asbestos cement or AC waterline condition assessment.
Right. Yeah, I think we're gonna get an additional outside consultant specifically on that project to make sure we're doing our diligence on the dollars and.
Correct. So we're actually having a scoping meeting with HDR Monday.
Okay.
Then from that, we're going to be bringing information to the MUDs February, maybe March for discussion.
Thank you.
We will have more discussion on next month because of the funding, but at this point, nobody's been identified and given a contract.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Anything else? All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item number 17, discuss potential funding alternatives related to the SJRA Woodlands Division proposed infrastructure projects. Is that what you were just talking about? We just did the 2 items together. All right. Item number 19 is receive the attorney's report.
We need to talk about it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
A little bit larger discussion.
All right, so pull the reins then on me here. All right, so
This item was put on as we've been receiving a lot of comments from directors about just kind of adding up all the dollars in the 10-year plan. You know, over 600 million. CXC's, the wastewater treatment plant, among other things as well, over the next decade or so. Right now, and as kind of listed out in the supplemental agreement, which kind of aligns with what was done in 2017. The way that that would work is SJA would sell bonds and then identify, in this case, the first tranche would be 35 million. That's just for the treatment plant. And then identify a wholesale rate that it would take to be able to cover that debt. And then that wholesale rate would be passed on to WWA and the MUDs and the customer. As you can imagine, putting 600 plus million over a decade, the water bills, and that would go on the water bill. So the water bill would go up pretty significantly over the next decade or so. So I've been hearing a lot of concerns about what that might look like. What's it look like? How big will it be? Those types of things. Not just for this tranche, but when all the projects are said and done, what is the water bill? And that got us kind of talking about, well, what are there other options to fund projects like this, or the projects that are in the 10-year plan? And we, there in the Allmuds meeting, there was a director that brought up the idea about selling bonds again, because that's kind of where most of the infrastructure was paid for out of bonds over the last 50 years. That certainly is an option. You could go to the voters, you could get bond authorization. Most of the MUDs don't have bond authorization of any significance, maybe $1 million here and there, but not much left, not on these dollar amounts. So you'd have to go back to the voters to get authorized to sell your own bonds. That has some complications with it just because it's pretty cumbersome, a lot of logistics, inefficient as far as selling lots of bond applications versus selling a few over the years through SJA. So that's certainly there. Another option that was brought up was to do a rollback tax election. And and by the way, that kind of second option of selling your own bonds, that would also come with it some level of a tax rate increase in order to create the revenue to pay back those bonds. A rollback tax election would be where you go in and you identify in your M&O tax rate a certain amount of increase to allow you to create enough revenue to pay back the bonds that SJA would still go the efficient route of selling bonds through one source instead of 10 MUDs, but do it also through taxes. So it's kind of some different scenarios and different trains of thought on, whether you would want this to be on a water bill. And the water bills could be upwards of a couple $100 or more versus it being on a tax bill. Generally speaking, the cost of that would be about the same, whether it's there or there. Obviously, and if it's in a water bill, it depends on how much water you use. So that doesn't necessarily directly indicate the size of home or the value of the home. If it's on the tax size, it's on the value of the property. So there may be some varying amounts per different customers, depending on the disparity or the difference between assessed value across the whole region versus water usage across the whole region. So those are kind of the differences. I think what we learned from the meetings yesterday was, and what we were trying to present to you was just options. There's no decision to be made today. And if there's any of those things that really doesn't sound like a way to go at all, then that's fine. If you're interested in hearing more or trying to get some more information or data, certainly we can do some financial analysis, pros and cons of some of the different options and bring them back. That's kind of the direction that it went yesterday in meetings, which I expected it would today. But anything else I left out?
So it would make sense, I would think, that if we were looking at infrastructure improvements and those are longer term, that fits the life of a bond more appropriately than raising water bills on the short term. But if there are some things as part of that 10-year plan that are more short-lived, if you will, then the cost of covering those would make a little bit more sense to impose that on a water bill rather than a tax bill. So it seems like to me, depending on what's in the 10-year plan and how much of it becomes infrastructure as opposed to short term, maybe we do a hybrid. Is that possible?
Possible. I suppose. You also are gonna have, your own facilities that over time will need to be rehabilitated. That's not really in the numbers right now, but probably won't be on the magnitude of these. Obviously, you don't have plans, but you do have, line marks certainly that will need to be addressed at some point. But your facilities, as you know, are newer than, most of the Woodlands, last 23 years or so. So,
Yeah, I mean, the Mud 39 facilities are really gonna be the last one to be done, because this is just facility one, then we need facility two. I think in the original plan where it was drawn out was, sort of just thinking in about 10 years or 20 years from now.
talking about the plant,
Plant two, and then plant three wasn't even on the projections, really.
But I think what Eric's talking about is more than just the waste treatment
That's right.
plants. It's a full-blown 10-year plan
Oh, yeah.
in addition to the treatment plants.
Yeah, I mean.
Only a portion of it
what
was
was the
the,
rate of the treatment plant
Okay.
necessarily, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely pipes and other things that happen as they do now.
That's right.
So I guess the way the conversation must have gone yesterday was, yeah, bring back some additional information and let's look at it maybe from a different approach. And I think, again, just matching the life of the asset or the life of the improvement to the funding mechanism that best fits that, whether it's taxes or water bill rates, that's where it needs to go, in my opinion.
Well, I think either way, I don't think there's a discussion about trying to cash flow these expenses. Shock to
Yeah.
ratepayers to have the rates that would be necessary to cash flow 600 and something million. I think what's really the decision point for the districts is, one, okay, assuming it is bond funded, is it funded, the bond issued by the River Authority or by each individual MUD? That's decision point one. Decision point two, if the River Authority issues the bonds, their mechanism to charge the MUDs is through wholesale rates. So then how do the MUDs pay their incremental amount of wholesale rate that's necessary to pay the River Authority's debt? So the MUDs pay it through just increasing incrementally, but over time, the incremental increase necessary for debt service plus $1 million is significant. What is that, are you gonna pay for it? Those increases through the water bill that's ultimately funding debt service? Or do you try to fund all or portion of it with maintenance tax to lessen the blow of the monthly water sewer bill increases? And so that's really what we're talking about, is assuming it's bond financed either way, but what's the entity that finances it? And then if the River Authority bond finances it, what revenue lever are the MUDs using to be able to pay their portion of the debt service on the River Authority's bond issue?
But I think even still, based on that scenario, you just match it to the life of the asset somehow, whether it's the maintenance and expense tax or whether it's I just don't see increasing a water rate to accommodate a $600 million bond flow or bond expense. I don't see that happening. I don't see how you could do that. But looking at the numbers, maybe somebody could convince me that it's possible. And then, so my other question, based on what you're saying, Brian, is if the River Authority gets the $600 million and each district is allocated to a certain percentage of that, and if we had to go out and fund our own allocation, is that possible that we can only fund what we needed, our proportionate share of the 600 million?
So
If we had to go,
I think the plan at this point is for the River Authority to issue bonds, if they're the ones issuing it, to issue it in tranches. How many, I couldn't say at this point. But at each stage, if the River Authority issues them, they're just gonna have monthly water sewer wholesale rates that are gonna be charged to you. So it's not like you have to come up with a lump of cash and give to the River Authority.
Right.
Now, if you go the maintenance tax route, and Adam can speak to this, then you have a one-time increase that can kind of stockpile money before it's necessarily needed because you're not in tranche 4 yet of the bond issues. You're stockpiling that away. Numbers, but we haven't run them yet, but may be able to show that maybe you can buy out of a particular tranche or buy down a tranche, but we'll have to see.
Ideally, that would be the most efficient way, but voters would have to decide that ultimately.
Y'all are now, it is important to note for MUD 39, at this point now, you have to make the designation every year. But as of the last year, MUD 39 is one of 3 districts that's still a developing district. So you're not subject to an automatic rollback election like the majority of the MUDs are. But again, this is a multi-year bond issuance program that the River Authority is talking about, and you have to make the designation every year. You went back into or stayed in developing because of the annexation of the defined area. So how quickly you would go back from developing to develop is really going to be a function of how quickly the developer moves to develop that new property that was at the district.
And at this point, we're probably looking at least 2 years or so. It seems like from the conversations that we've heard. But we don't know that. Okay. All right, well, that's a lot of information. Yeah.
Sounds like y'all would like some more information like the other districts. Further.
Yeah. I mean, I think my biggest concern is, you know, what I've learned over a year and a half is there's certain MUDs that have better budgets than others. I know the MUD 39 is one of the newer MUDs, but I find that we're pretty financially efficient. And so we have some surpluses built up, but being a smaller one, and then my concern is, well, if we went down that route, and again, I'm not saying I'm for or against any, the Woodlands becoming a city, but if the Woodlands did, then my assumption would be all these debt obligations for each individual MUD would be absorbed by the city. And then you then have to figure out how is a small MUD's obligation versus large MUD's obligation then going to be spread to my home versus Ted's home versus your home, right? So that's a whole nother can of worms that we have to build out. And I think these are doable, right? With the right amount of research. But yeah, I definitely need more information for sure.
Well, very good. Thank you all. All right, moving on to item number 19, receive the attorney's report.
Nothing that is not a separate agenda item.
Okay. Moving on to item number 20, matters relating to the director's election to be called for May 4th, 2024, including 1, the memorandum regarding joint elections, and 2, notification of the Montgomery County officials that the district intends to participate in the joint election.
Speaking of separate agenda items, you'll see my memo there in the packet. They're starting at page 53. The punchline there is we are recommending that all of the Woodlands MUDs join with the county to have the election conducted by Montgomery County Elections. That is the same path which MUDs have taken 2020 and 2022 election cycle. So the memo goes through and details what our rationale is for that, but the takeaway is recommending the board authorize notification to the county of our intent to participate jointly in the election.
Okay. And I think we had talked about that a little bit in the past as well, when we talked about the election just in general, but any particular questions or comments at this point?
And I would say is, going through this process as a person running, it was very simple and straightforward, the first time I did it. So yeah, I don't think it's an overly complicated process for people that want to become involved, and certainly encourage people to be involved in their community. So it wasn't intimidating at all. Just walk in with some paperwork and your name's on the ballot, and then people go to the emergency center or the library and vote for you.
And I think that, as with all elections, education of the public is important as well. We did let the residents know where to vote, when to vote, that type of stuff, which I'm assuming we'll do through all of our communication mechanisms, but we'll also do on our own as well. Okay. Anything else, Brian?
Just need a motion to authorize notification to the county.
I'd like to make a motion to notify the county, please.
I second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor to notify the county of our impending elections. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Election. agenda that's at the beginning of your packet. There are two items on that supplemental agenda. First one, the second one, the compensation to be paid to election officials will be determined by Montgomery County since we will be conducting, they'll be conducting an election on it. We do need to take action to formally call the election, adopt the order, call the election, appoint the agent, district, which is Eric.
All right, so we need a motion on the floor to accept and then a second to approve.
I'd like to make a motion to accept and approve.
All right,
Second.
second by Jim. All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, item number 21, consider an act on the tie-in to the district from the RV park in the Glen Eagle neighborhood.
I don't think there's any updates. I do know that the owner met with Howard Hughes and they talked about some of the things that they're gonna need to do, talking with TechStop, but nothing more than that.
Okay. Mike, anything from your standpoint?
No, nothing, just other than what Eric's.
All right. All right, any questions or comments? Sean? Nothing? All right, moving on to item number 23, receive and act on the general manager's report.
Items, I just wanted to point out in your packet, there's a letter that Jim Stinson provided, saying thank you to the board's trustees on a nice resolution and reception we had for his retirement. And so that's in your packet. Wanted to point out that the new general manager for SDRA has started this week, and Aubrey Spear and SDRA has set up a reception for the Woodlands Mud directors to meet Aubrey on February 7th at the treatment plant, the Woodlands Division Office on Sawdust from 5 to 6:30 on February 7th.
Okay.
And with that, I'll pass it on to John to
John.
talk a little bit about our comms.
Afternoon.
Welcome, John.
Hi. Let's see, on page 62, we've got a few pages. First few pages, you'll see current examples of our materials that are out in various outlets. Then I want to skip to page 65 and spend a little time with the results from the community survey that we talked about before we broke for the holidays. You know, we issued that in November. It was a follow-up from the first one we did in fall of 2022. So we went back a year later, we measured the impact we've had on understanding and variability ratings regarding Woodlands water and the muds. So it was a 20-question survey. The full survey and all the results, all the data tied to that can be found using that QR code at the top right corner. I'm not going to go through all 20 questions with you. I just want to hit some highlights to give you a sense of how we did. Overall, we did great. We improved across the board. Very encouraging results. I will say this is not an end-all be-all assessment of how we're doing. We have a number of different ways we can measure. We measure, continue to bring those findings forward, you know, throughout the year. But this is certainly a nice gauge. 24% more folks this round got the answer right on where their water comes from. That's good. We want them to know that. Room to grow still, but we're making progress. How much knowledge do you have regarding your municipal utility district? Folks that said a lot or some increased by 8%. And what is your opinion of your municipal utility district? Favorable increased 20%, unfavorable dropped 54%.
So when you say unfavorable, that's a good thing.
That's good. So they could have said, what's your opinion? They had favorable, mixed, no opinion, or unfavorable. So unfavorable dropped in half.
Well, that's great, because the third question of what is your opinion of Woodlands Water Agency dropped by half as well. So it sounds like we're moving in the right direction with some updated marketing.
It seems so.
Yeah.
It seems so. We did spend a lot of time helping folks better understand their bills. We did some reformatting on the bill itself and provided educational materials to underpin that. Folks that said they clearly understood their bill increased 8%, and those that said did not feel the bill was clearly explained, that dropped 25%. And then we tacked on a few new questions, a couple relating to infrastructure to get a sense of where folks are at as far as their understanding of infrastructure. 54% said they're very aware or somewhat aware that our water and sewer infrastructure needed to be replaced in coming years. So there's that. And then we put a question on there gauging our customer service and how folks are feeling about how they get treated when they contact us. Over 88% said they were satisfied with dealing with them. Kudos to all the folks out there
Absolutely.
that do that on a daily basis. So again, you can find the full results, all the questions using that QR code. You have any questions about any of that, just let me know.
John, you might have said this initially and I might have missed it, but what was your total population of this?
850 respondents.
Okay.
So good sample size.
Yeah, that's very good.
Page 67, you'll see a template for the annual update that a number of MUDs utilizing this one came from MUD 7. If you so chose to do an annual update, basically what we would do is see those red numbers there. We would just take your copy and plug it in, format it in here, and then we would attach it to the monthly water bill. If we're gung ho, we can get it in February. If that's too soon, we can put that in the March bill or the February bill sent out March 1. So if that's something you'd like to do, please let me know. We did around last year, 6 MUDs issued one. They were received very favorably. We sent them out as stuffers and digitally. We had very high open rates on the emails. Folks wanted that information. So, and if you did this one pager, you're going to looking at about $400 or so.
So you said we could do it quicker and we could get it out for February, or we could do it later and do March.
That's right. We're prepared to work with you to get out in February if you are, if you want to do it then, or we can give you a little more time.
Excuse me. Other than the approval, what would you need from us, John? You need any information, or do you guys have that
We need information. So this is all information, and most of it's specific to MUD 7.
Right.
So we would need to get your bullet points in here.
Okay. But is that something we can get from staff, or do we have to come up with that ourselves, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, I guess we can work together on that. We can give you some bullet points, some potential bullet points to consider. You can write your own, do a combination of that, do a little back and forth, make sure you're good with the wording, of course.
I mean, I kind of think it might be better in March. I mean, it's good to be updated, but you know, I mean, I think there's a lot going on right now with you know, people paying their property taxes and MUD bills and just in general things, life. And you know, if we send it out in March, again, it's just, you know, kind of making sure there's always high points throughout the year. I don't remember when the other MUDs, did they send them out last year in February roughly, or?
It spanned several months.
Okay. And I mean, I don't know if this is allowed or not, but I mean, I think it's a great way to also show what we've done on the MUD board as well. With, you know, elections in May, like, I mean, it's a great way just to say, hey, you know, you've elected these people and they're doing, you know, they're doing a good job, or not, you know, whatever their opinion is. So,
John, what would be your deadline if you needed information from us for like a March mail out?
Oh, for March, we'll just say the 15th of February.
Next meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe in advance of next meeting,
Right.
we could discuss it, yeah.
If you wanted to present it to the board back in February, then between now and then, we need to get it worked up.
Right.
Or maybe 1 or 2 of y'all, and then we can present back. Then,
I mean, I'm happy to work on it. Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be great. The neighborhood and the community need to know, you know, what we've done, and they decide by voting, you know, and yeah, good job or bad job.
and that was the original intent of it. for all of us to show the community what. What's going on.
Well, I'm happy to work with Sean on it if you guys have no problem with that. Or so Sean will get together and kind of come up with some bullet points and
So I'll forward you an email, with some bullets that to consider what's going from there.
Okay.
you have Sean's email address?
Yeah, your Woodlands Water.
Can I give you my, and am I allowed to give my personal email? So, yeah, well, I'll give you my personal email. Yeah.
Right. Just real quick, it's on the page, communication strategic plan, to approve that last Wednesday. It's basically contracts, very similar to what we did last year, but we're gonna still have emphasis on infrastructure going forward. So that's there for you. And then finally, probably saw a flyer, is there there on the Gulf Coast Water Conservation Symposium coming on February 22. It's an excellent one-day educational opportunity. Helping the water in North Beach. Director Paul Nelson. Create this 12 years ago, if it makes any sense. Harris County, Harris Gallatin District.
I have one thing I just wanted to kind of praise y'all on. I'm, in social media, and so I saw, I believe it came from the Water Smart group. Someone on the Facebook page in Harper's Landing said, "Hey, I got a message from the water group that said my water has been running since Sunday." And so, well, that's normally that's very surprising, but people are dripping their faucets constantly right now. Like, oh, well, that's really good. It's working. Good or bad, it's running. Great, I know it's running. Is it running at an appropriate rate? They can check that as well. So again, I know this is very new. We're trying to push everyone being involved, and hey, we know we're using water right now to keep our pipes from freezing. So thank you for allowing us to be digitally updated and kind of helping ourselves versus inundating y'all, and y'all able to help with other more major issues as they come. So
Powerful tool. We've got about 37% of our customers are on Water Smart, and it's a major emphasis to continue to grow that.
we're great. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, John. All right, moving on to item number 24, receive the Woodlands Water Trustee Report.
So I went to that one in December. I don't believe there was anything that I had to cover that was not already covered in depth already today. So.
And did you have anything, Eric, from the 10th or?
Now, there was a discussion on the drink plant and the funding.
Very good, thank you. Item number 25, recess to close session to consult with district's attorney pursuant to section 551071 of the Texas Government Code.
Not necessary.
Not necessary. Moving on, item number 26 is in item number 25. All right, so item number 27, discuss any matters for placement on future agendas. Gentlemen? Anything, Sean? Nothing from anyone? All right, item number 28, we are adjourned at 12:56.